This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022, and we're in Barcelona for Mobile Congress 2022. And this is a group podcast where we're going to talk to you about everything we liked and maybe disliked about the products announced at the show. I've got Anshel Sag next to me, and I've got Nick Gray next to him, and Rich Woods at the very end here. So let's get started. Sorry, that was a jerry rig everything reference. So guys, what do you think? What is the things that stood out for you? And we can go from there, and I'm sure that we'll pick them all off at some point, some way.
I'll do something a little bit less expected. I really like the Lenovo X13S.
Yes.
On paper it looks great, but actually, like holding it and touching it and being able to experience it, I'm very excited for it. It has the latest Snapdragon processor in it. It's got the ThinkPad DNA. I'm excited to see what the 5G performance is like. And I think it's probably going to be the best-selling Windows on ARM PC ever.
This is a laptop or a tablet two-in-one?
It is a laptop.
It is a laptop.
Okay, laptop.
Yeah.
A proper
laptop. Yep.
Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I got a chance to play with it as well at the event in New York, and while the device itself is exciting for me, having been in the corporate world for so long and knowing what the turnaround time is to get devices like that approved, especially for new chipset within a corporate environment, I was kind of sad because the laptop's amazing, but I know corporate uptake for larger companies is probably going to be extremely slow, especially for it being Lenovo's first foray into this category with the Qualcomm chipset. I think the next one's going to sell really well. This one here is going to be like a test device for the next generation as far as larger corporations and them, buying into Snapdragon versus an Intel chipset.
But isn't the elephant in the room here again the fact that Microsoft is sucking at Windows on ARM?
Yeah, and again, for the corporate world, it's app compatibility. Like, we all know every corporation, yes, they use the regular apps that we all use as well, but they build their own apps as well. They have so many in-house app development that who knows if any of their stuff will run on ARM. And so they have all these legacy apps that are 10, 15 years old that they still use today for running the back ends of their systems. Can they actually do that? I could totally see a sales team using these laptops, but corporate inside, people who are butts in the seats in the corporate offices, I don't see something like this being...
So, Microsoft and Qualcomm, Windows 11 has x64 emulation now, right? Microsoft and Qualcomm do have a program where if you have a business app that's not working properly on ARM, you can take it to them. They will help you get it running on ARM. And obviously, it's going to be an uphill.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle.
It has been.
I'm really excited for it, though.
Lenovo absolutely has the best-selling business laptop brand. They have
they're the number one laptop brand.
I'm not denying all this.
Globally.
I'm just playing the devil's advocate here because we've seen what Apple's done. You buy a Mac with an M1 chip and everything works. Like 99% of everything works.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to Qualcomm or Microsoft to get your app to work.
Yeah, but
the performance is out of this world, right?
Apple does not have those kinds of business use cases that Windows has.
Correct.
I know, but at the same time, how long did it take for us to get x86 64 emulation?
Way too long.
Right?
Yeah.
And even 32-bit emulation was really crappy.
The chipsets were crappy too.
Well, I think the issue was Microsoft's heart wasn't in it. Mm-hmm. And I think their tack has changed.
Are they really? Is it real?
I think it's much more real now than ever.
It is, yeah.
Because they
Apple legitimized.
I think Apple scared them.
Okay.
And I think not only did Apple scare them, Apple scared all their OEMs.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of critical mass, I feel like at this point, Microsoft is all in. And on top of that, they want not only Windows to be successful and PCs, but they want all the other form factors to also be able to take advantage of their ecosystem. So they're trying to make it more compatible, more open. We'll see how it works out. But I've never seen them as serious now as they have been in the past. And I've criticized them a lot for how I didn't feel like their heart was in it. But now I actually get the sense that they really do want to do it.
It legitimately wasn't in it. I mean, they did Windows on ARM to light a fire under Intel. And that also worked also because we have the new 12th gen processors that were announced this week with the hybrid architecture that's obviously borrowed from ARM.
Yeah.
So, or inspired by it.
I'm just saying that, I hear you on all that. I just find it's a little too little too late. Like, really, I mean, when Qualcomm started spearheading Windows on ARM, and I want to, by the way, point out
6 years ago.
I don't think Qualcomm's the issue here. And by the way, thanks to Qualcomm for lending us this room, this meeting room, here at their booth at the FIRA in Barcelona. Thank you, folks. But I think, for me, it's Microsoft is the one who dropped the ball. And I know that they're catching up, but they're only doing it because Apple did something. And yet, Qualcomm came into it going like, look at what we could do. And Microsoft was like,
Well, the hardware was underpowered. And that's also because the PC market is very slow. I talked to ARM about that this week because the HCX Gen 3 is X1 when the Snapdragon 8 is X2. And the reason is because these companies need a chip for 12 to 18 months before they'll put it in a product.
Yeah.
So they have to do their testing internally to see will it deliver the performance we need.
So ARM announces a new design, and then Qualcomm announces a new chip that's based on the previous design, just because that's how the PC market works.
Cool. Well, I haven't seen that Lenovo laptop. I heard about it because Lenovo pitched me the thing by email. And, it's not my core competency. I think we should talk about Oppo a little bit because I feel like the Find X5 Pro came out since the last podcast, and it is a beast, and it is expensive, and it is premium, and it goes against everything you think about when you think about like US market, perspective, right? Mm-hmm. More expensive than an S22 Ultra, spec-wise less than an S22 Ultra, but more premium design-wise. And it has some features that I think are really impressive that I think nobody seems to be caring about. Possibly because Apple's done it across the iPhone 13 line now, but it's the first Android phone with sensor shift stabilization. And not just that, it has both OIS and sensor shift where the sensor moves and the lens moves with it like that. It's pretty incredible. Like Apple doesn't even do that. So it takes care of all the lens distortion issues. And then on top of that, the sensor can rotate. So it's 5 axes, 1 axis, 1, and then 1, and 1, right? So it's pretty amazing. To me, that's a huge progress. And with a Sony IMX766 at the core, that's a super solid sensor and a glass element lens. So they've actually put real glass in there. And I have one. I've taken photos with it, and I can see the difference. I had a Find X3 Pro, which is the same sensor, but without the fancy, I had regular optical stabilization, but without the fancy optics, and I see the difference. And of course, then there is the custom ISP and the new color science with Hasselblad and all that.
Well, and I think the custom ISP is one of the features that gets talked about the least, even though Oppo wants to talk about it the most, because it is transformational as far as low-light videography goes. Not so much low-light photography, but the low-light videography that you can achieve with this. It literally will light up a room when the room is completely dark. Like, you see more through the camera than you can with your naked eye, which is incredible. And we've seen this before with some smartphones taking photos. Like back in the day when HTC had the HTC One with its...
the M7.
Yeah, the M7 with its 2-micron pixels capturing low light. You could take a photo and it was brighter than what your eyes could see without all these computational photography algorithms that we have now.
And then the P30 Pro with RYYB was the next big step.
Yeah, correct. And so, but with this new image processing, I think it's not going to be immediately evident that Oppo's changing the photography landscape right now. But as they roll it down to their mid-range devices, where it's going to be a lot more distributed to customers and to their Reno lineup probably in the next year or so, I think that's going to be a big change for them, differentiating, saying, we have mid-range devices that can take these incredible photos. You don't have to pay €1,300 to get it. You might, right? So we're going to have to wait a year for that to democratize into their other devices. But I think it's going to be amazing.
I think a few things I want to mention here. The chip is called Mary Silicon X. It's a weird name. MARI Silicon X. And it is a 6 nanometer custom made chip. And I'm seeing some improvement in low light performance on photography as well.
Yeah, but they're not as noticeable as the video.
It's not as drastic, but I think what we're seeing is what we saw with the S22 Ultra. By the way, the S22 Ultra is currently recording the video. If you're watching this on Patreon, remember Patreon has the video version of the podcast ahead of the audio version. It's one of the tiers, patreon.com/tankgirl, patreon.com/TNKGRL. So join if you want to watch the video version and see all of us show off the phones and camera and all that. By the way, I have the Oppo right here. It's in a case, but here we go. It's a really nice phone, but 1,300 euros,
Yeah.
1,400 US dollars for a ceramic back, which is exquisite. But you ask yourself, S22 Ultra is 1,200. You're going to get a discount on it no matter where you buy it. You don't have any telephotos on this that are worth anything. There's a 2X, but it's actually used for fusion. That's the other thing that I don't think Oppo is talking about.
Yeah.
They're fusing the two sensors. The reason that little 13 megapixel 2X telephoto looks janky is because it doesn't have OIS, is you're like, why? Well, it's actually not taking the photos. It's assisting the main sensor at taking 2X, 3X in portrait photos.
Yep.
And I don't think beyond 3X it's anything to talk about. And that's why if you have an S22 Ultra, you're laughing in terms of telephoto, and you're laughing at a lower price point. But I think this is a much more pleasant to hold phone than the massive Note-like device.
It's not quite as wide. It's the same tallness.
And it's thinner,
design.
and I mean, it's a pretty, a lot of people don't understand the money, but I think premium is a thing. People will pay for that experience of ceramic, stainless steel, the whole shebang. So, and in this market, like Europe, Asia, that's a totally acceptable thing. We're used to all our flagships being subsidized to death, trade-in values, and bring one, get one, and all that. That doesn't happen. Shout out to Oppo, by the way, for flying us out and putting us up in a hotel for MWC. So good for them. Thank you. I think I've done all the thank yous now, but, what else did you find interesting about this phone? I know you have one, Nick. I don't know if you have one.
Mine's waiting for me at home.
Yeah, I haven't
Is
used
Ryan going to hook you up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good device. The other thing, it also has 85-watt fast charging. Everyone was super excited that the Galaxy S22 Ultra had 45-watt, and this is 85.
It's 80, not 85.
Is it 80 or 85?
It's something like that.
And then they just announced that the OnePlus,
150.
the OnePlus,
And then they announced
will have
240.
150. And then they announced 240.
Yeah. So just so you can follow here at home because you weren't at MWC. Oppo and Realme also announced faster than 100-watt charging, which is not new. We've had 120 on some devices. This is 140 or 150?
150. Right now, that's coming this year with 250 in the pipeline.
240.
Or 240
in the pipeline.
So they said 15 minutes to charge your phone on 150 watts. 9 minutes at 240 watts.
It was 17 minutes at 120 watts when I tried it on the Xiaomi 11T. So I already experienced that, and I tested it. It's ridiculous. I waited for the phone to shut down. I plugged it in. 17 minutes, literally.
And so with the new charging technology, they also announced a new battery management system that to increase, to manage the 150-watt charging and eventually the 240-watt charging so that it doesn't kill your battery. But with it, they are actually changing the chemistries of their batteries to have a healing component to it so that a regular smartphone typically lasts between 700 and 800 charge cycles before you deplete the battery to 80%.
Correct.
And that's considered the life of the battery. You can use it for longer than that if you want, but 80% is kind of the industry standard for that's the lowest it should go. They're saying now with this new chemistry and the battery management system, they're going to take that from 800 charge cycles to 1600 charge cycles, essentially giving you a battery that shouldn't get down to 80% until you reach 5 years, 4.5 to 5 years.
That's pretty good.
Insane.
And I think necessary, coming from the EV side where a lot of that is already happening, you're actively managing the battery. Sometimes they're depleting it a bit on purpose and then they're refilling it a bit on purpose just to kind of balance out the cells and stuff.
Out,
Like all that stuff. Remember, all these phones that charge at more than 65 watt right now have a dual pipe. So they're charging two separate batteries in parallel, and these batteries are then put in series to generate when the phone is actually being used. So it's a very interesting setup, and it's the only way you're going to do it. You can't do it with a single cell, you'd blow it up. So, the other thing to mention on the Oppo Find X5 Pro is 50-watt wireless charging, which we've had before, but this is still a huge number.
Yep.
And there's some crazy other numbers we're going to talk about Honor in a minute about wireless charging at 100 watts. I don't know how they do that without lighting a fire.
It's also sucking down a lot of power from the wall.
Definitely, because you're probably inefficiency. But overall, for me,
I can imagine.
I've basically been using the Find X5 Pro as my kind of main phone for the whole event. And I'm really happy with the photos. I'm happy with the user experience. It's nice and fast. Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Oh, they also announced a MediaTek Dimensity 9000 version of the phone for China only. So in China, you have a choice of processors. You still get the Mary Silicon X ISP, and you get a Dimensity 9000 or a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. This is technically the first Dimensity 9000 phone.
Yeah.
And the rumors up to the launch of the Find X5 series was that the X5 non-Pro was going to get the Dimensity 9000, but it got an 8 Gen 1 as well, which is interesting. So, I think Oppo is really positioning themselves up market in the Find X for the last 3 years, and they're continuing. I told them they need kind of to make an ultra version that has whatever, Pro Plus, that has like a beefy telephone, like an folded lens of some kind.
You love your telephoto lenses.
I do too.
So do I.
Yeah,
it's like, no, it's not just that. It's just look at what we're recording with here. This is a $1,200 phone. Don't mess about, Oppo. You can't stay behind, right? And that's why that rumor of a OnePlus phone coming with 150 watt charging, to me, justifies all the rumors we've heard of a OnePlus 10 Ultra with potentially a periscope telephone. Yeah. Because it has to. Because the 10 Pro, by the way, the 10 Pro is here. The global version was Oxygen OS. I got to play with it. It feels just like a 9 Pro, aesthetically different.
Well, and just so you know, the device that they're showing the charging demo on, that is the next OnePlus phone.
Okay.
That is the one. It's in a dummy shell. It's in a dummy shell.
See the lenses in the back? Anything?
No, it's in a dummy shell.
It's covered.
Yeah, it's completely covered. But that is the next OnePlus phone using for the demo.
It's here.
It's here.
So we should go get it.
Yeah.
You should go steal it. No, so I was playing with the demo, and one of the OnePlus guys came over, and he's like, "Just so you know, that's the phone.
That's the phone.
But it's not the final build or anything like that. Final software and final, but internals of the device is the OnePlus.
So for a lot of us, this has been our first experience with the OnePlus 10 Pro, even though it's been out in China for a while. And now with Oxygen OS, it's been announced, it's official, it's coming sometimes in March. We don't know when. Don't get too excited. If you played with a OnePlus 9 Pro, you're pretty much getting the same experience with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. And instead, you're getting a lesser ultra wide that's 150 degrees, up to 150 degrees. There's different modes. So, that's what you're getting. So I don't think that's the phone for you, and knowing my audience. So maybe this 150 watt 10 Ultra or whatever is going to be happening. 10 Pro Plus.
I mean, the OnePlus 10 Pro still charges extremely fast.
Oh, it's great. No.
And I honestly do
Mm-hmm.
love the design of the phone.
Looks good.
The camera module on the back definitely looks a lot better than the 9 Pro does.
Agreed.
They've done something unique. They've kind of taken something out of Samsung's designs from last year, where the camera module was built into the frame, and they just extended it over half the back of the phone, made it bigger and bulkier. And I love the design that Samsung did last year, and continued on this year as well. And to see OnePlus do that as well. OnePlus phones the last couple years have looked kind of meh, and this one doesn't look like, a lot of people are worried about the integration of OnePlus into Oppo. This does not look like an Oppo phone.
This looks unique. Yeah,
this looks like a OnePlus phone, completely separate from Oppo.
There are some challenges though with that design, because apparently it folds in half. Have you seen the video from Zach?
Zach, go watch the Jerry Rig Everything video.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
He put a lot of pressure on it.
I'm not here to be a pain about this stuff. I don't think it matters to the average user, but it is interesting that the industrial design of that phone is dictating some structural weaknesses that are making this phone way easier to bend than normal.
Well, I think it's the placement of some of the separations in the metal band for the antennas.
100%.
And it's the exact placement of it where it just puts a weakness where you would bend it.
And I think that as much as I'm not worried about it, it's my job as a journalist to mention it. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what this new OnePlus brings, because, we're going to review it this month, I hope, sometime, the 10 Pro, and I don't think we're going to come away super amazed, because we've already used the Find X5 Pro, which is partially in, some of the elements of the OnePlus 10 Pro, and the Realme GT2 Pro, which I also have, which also has 150-degree ultra wide and I think a 766 of some kind for main sensor.
For the main sensor.
So it's kind of, they're all very much similar, right?
For OnePlus, and I think they've lost this conversation the last couple years, but it was always the right price, the right features at the right price that made it stand out. And the last couple years, they've lost the price. The question is, can they bring it back with the 10 Pro?
Do you want to show it a little closer to the camera?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. There you go.
That's Realme.
This is
nice,
649.
right?
649 euros.
And it doesn't have wireless charging, does it?
I don't think it does.
So, you're missing some stuff. Also,
Okay.
it's an aluminum build, but the back is kind of a plasticky paper thing, which is fine because it feels really nice.
Reminds me of the
Nokia?
OnePlus 9 Pro.
You get the nice
It
color.
does. This looks like a OnePlus 9 Pro, except for this little bump over here,
The
right?
plastic build, though, reminds me of the Nokia days.
So it's not. They said it's not plastic.
No,
Yeah.
it's some sort of like recyclable material.
It's a recyclable
it's
material.
plastic-ish.
It's a
Plastic.
polymer.
Personally, I do love the feel of it, the textured feel of it. It's got this pattern on the back.
Yeah,
Texture.
they
It
said
feels
how
different.
many cuts there is, like 5,000 something.
Cuts on the
Cuts.
back.
And,
on the
you know,
back.
it's Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It's a metal chassis. You're getting fast charging of some kind. I don't remember what it is.
I
65.
65,
yeah.
yeah. You're getting, lots of RAM and storage. This is a solid flagship. Speaking of displays, by the way, the 10 Pro OnePlus and this phone and the Oppo Find X5 Pro all share the same display. It's a AMOLED LTPO 1 to 120 hertz, so completely variable. Super bright, like 1,000 plus nits on all three of them. Slightly variation.
resolution.
It's surprising that there's variations in the brightness nits between them.
I think that's a software calibration.
Yeah, it's
right?
and I'm like, why wouldn't you just make it the same across all of
Durability or
them?
whatever price point,
Maybe.
I think, look, this is BBK Group. It's the same company. So I think it's interesting. I think if you're looking for the best budget option, like the best bang for your buck.
We talk about that price though, 649
It's incredible,
euros, and then the non-pro is 440.
It doesn't have a telephoto though.
Yeah, I know.
So that's the one thing. Like,
Yeah, it has the micro camera.
Even though the Find X5 Pro has a kind of on paper spec-wise crammy telephoto, it does fusion with that ISP to actually get some pretty decent 2x and 3x photos.
The digital zoom on this, because it is the 766,
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good, and
They're promising 3x
and
digital zoom.
yeah, and so they do have on-screen 2x digital zoom. You just tap the button and it does it. There's so many phones that still don't have that digital zoom button. And I'm like, at least give me a 2x.
Yeah, we
because
need a 2x.
it's just crop it in and give me something, especially when you have a 50 megapixel sensor. Like
Right.
I can live with a 25 megapixel image,
100%.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
how could you?
Yeah.
How could you survive?
How could I survive?
It's actually technically 4 times less, so it's 12.5.
Even so, Pixel phones are taking 12 megapixel
Exactly.
photos,
Perfect.
right?
Yep.
And remember too, folks, that most of the ISPs today, like, use some smart algorithms that do sub-pixel interpolation, where like your hand motion, like Pixel is the first to do that, but everybody's kind of doing it now, where your hand moves a little bit as you're holding the phone, and it stacks those pictures, right? It's taking a whole bunch in space, and then all of a sudden it gets slightly different pixels every time.
And it's doing the noise reduction at the same time and everything.
Stitch a picture out of that that's higher resolution than the sensor resolution at that zoom level. Now, you can be stupid and just interpolate nearest neighbor, and basically that's how the worst zooms are done. That's the old school digital zoom. So that's what the Realme is doing. The OnePlus 10 Pro has a proper 3x telephoto optically stabilized, and it uses that just as is. And then the Oppo Find X5 Pro does something even crazier where it fuses. And the fusion is that you have the center of the 50 megapixel, like the zoomed part, and then you take the data from the 13 megapixel and you compare them, and you basically pick the detail from the 50 and
it's getting the light from the detail and the light from the 50 and fusing it to the pixels of the 13. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And so we're going to see more on that. I think that the Honor Magic 4 Pro we're about to talk has that. That's something Huawei pioneered with the P40 series. I never understood why the P40 only had 8 megapixel telephotos until I realized they're doing fusion.
Right.
They're not actually they don't need that resolution on the telephotos.
If you look at most modern camera systems now, the camera systems are slowly becoming just one giant soft camera, where physical lenses and sensors are no longer relevant, and the complete software solution that incorporates all sensors and lenses together is really what the camera has become.
Yeah, but I still think we're not seeing that systematically. Like, for example, this phone is still just using smart zooming, but not using sensor fusion. And even the OnePlus isn't doing it. And, I think 5 years from now it'll be commonplace. But I don't think even I don't think Apple's using it yet. They're just putting solid hardware and just doing their ISP on each sensor separately. You select the sensor.
This is true, but like Apple, I wouldn't put Apple in the same conversation as some of these Android OEMs because Apple takes the simple approach.
Right.
They give you the best hardware possible to do the task, and they keep the software as simple as possible. In the last couple of years, they've been doing more computational photography.
Yeah.
But they're compared to, especially Google, their computational photography is really far behind. And they'll get there eventually, but they just take the slow approach. Like, what's the next best sensor we can do? And that will solve the problem versus Google's approach with the Pixel devices, using the same sensor, 3 years in a row, saying, hey, this is a crappy 12 megapixel sensor that was a mid-range sensor 2 years before they put it in the first Pixel. And we're going to give this thing a lifespan of 5 years, but look at these photos. We can take amazing photos with it because we can tweak the software to our heart's content.
100%. No, look, I'm just pointing out that really, if you look at it right now, it's Huawei, Honor, and Oppo, and who else is doing a sensor fusion? This is it, right? I don't know if anybody else. Xiaomi is. Xiaomi did on the Mi 11.
Mi 11 Ultra, yeah.
Right. And that's okay. It's just that I want to see it go down to the mid-range.
It'll get democratized to the mid-range within a year or two.
Did you think it's the reason why Oppo did their own silicon there? What do you think? You are kind of into that.
The thing is that when you look at the ISPs in these Snapdragon processors, it is technically possible. The SDKs are there, the hardware hooks are there. You can do it. I think the issue is it probably requires a lot of manpower and a lot of QA and just creating a very complex camera system. And I think when you look at companies like Oppo, which I was going to talk about, is they have really leaned into their R&D and spending the time and money on specific technology that improves the overall smartphone experience, like the charging, like the camera systems. And I think they built the Mary Silicon because, one, it lets them have their own roadmap for the ISP, but also they can be SoC agnostic on the ISP.
And they can put it on a MediaTek or a Qualcomm 100%. And get the same experience. Yeah. Like we've seen them across the board of their different brands, right? With Realme, Oppo, OnePlus, kind of the same color science for their image processing. And you can look at the camera apps and you're like, the camera app is the same app and you have the AI enhanced button on the right-hand side. But that's a good thing because if they develop it for a high-end device, they can port it down to the lower end devices and not have to spend the engineering work. But usually if you look at other brands, the mid-range devices have bad cameras, right? The image processing just isn't there. If you look at a Motorola device and take a photo, you're like, what are they thinking?
I want to point out that somebody tweeted on my timeline about last week's show where we reviewed the Red Magic 7. And my words were in the podcast that the Red Magic 7 barely meets what my minimum requirements are in imaging, which is a Motorola phone. And so we're doing it again. We're comparing Moto as the baseline of the worst possible but still acceptable performance.
It is. I mean, they haven't proven themselves as far as comparing to anybody else on the market. They focus on mid-range and low-end devices. And so people buying those phones aren't expecting an amazing camera. So
but I love
they're not
that
going to
we're
be
using it as a
disappointed.
benchmark now.
Yeah,
we're
I
like,
know.
okay, so you want a mediocre but passable camera system?
Here's a Moto.
Here's a Moto of any kind. You're good to go. The Red Magic 7 fits the bill there. But here we're way beyond that.
We're steps ahead. Yeah,
and so to me, what's interesting with the Oppo Find X5 Pro is that it's a Hasselblad branded yet, and it's, the color science from Oppo has always been my favorite of the BBK group, although Realme has inherited that lately. And OnePlus, last year with the 9 Pro, I haven't shot with the 10 Pro, so I don't know yet, but with the 9 Pro last year, I didn't feel the color science was as good as the Find X3 Pro.
No.
Yet it was Hasselblad branded. Yet with the Find X5 Pro this year, which is also Hasselblad branded, I'm not seeing Hasselblad. I am seeing
More of that
Oppo's
Oppo.
color science with a few tweaks. I don't understand with this Hasselblad thing. Is it just a sticker at this point? Because it feels that way to me.
So I had a conversation with Oppo yesterday about this, and basically we were really hammering them hard about the Hasselblad thing. And they were saying that basically the different brands get to choose different things that Hasselblad offers.
What are
to
they
the
offering,
Oppo group?
though?
So like color science.
Right.
My understanding is some algorithms in terms of image processing,
still just
like
software.
image quality. So
Yeah, it's
my
still
understanding is all software,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there are different pieces of the equation that they can choose from different brands, and that they are letting the brands stay different in how they approach these things, so that we're not trying to compare Oppo against OnePlus in a camera, because they're trying to accomplish different things.
So, yeah. All I'm saying is the Oppo Find X5 Pro, like the Find X3 Pro before it, have phenomenal color science. Hasselblad branding or not, last year's 9 Plus, 9 Pro was good, but didn't do it for me. So I'm really hoping the 10 Pro this year, kind of now that Oppo and OnePlus are one, inherits some of that color science. Then I can feel like the Hasselblad branding is justified.
I'm hoping for that too. That's why I was really upset they wouldn't let me take pictures with the OnePlus 10 Pro. I just wanted to play with it and see if it's a little better, because I was not impressed with the OnePlus.
So I have the Realme here. I have the Realme, a $335 phone from Realme, the 9 Pro Plus.
Okay.
IMX766, optically stabilized, and color science is Oppo. It is a Realme phone. It is a $335 phone with a MediaTek Dimensity 920, and the photos I'm getting out of there are blowing my freaking mind. They are like, I
Which is
feel like I'm
amazing
shooting
for
with a flagship, because 766, they've got the 766 so well harnessed now that they're just giving us all the love. And so if you're looking for an imaging beast that's not too expensive and you don't live in the US, you don't have to worry about the 5G bands and all that, I cannot recommend the Realme 9 Pro Plus, specifically the Plus. It's the only one with the 766 and the OIS. But at that price point, there's very few phones with OIS. There's the iPhone SE 2020. There is the Pixels, the
older
5A
Pixels,
and the 4A,
Yeah.
right? And that's it. There's nobody else. Oh, sorry. TCL, Brad. Hi, sorry. The TCL 20 Pro from last year. But that has a bad imaging pipeline.
Their
That's
imaging
Motorola
processing.
grade.
Yeah, that's Motorola grade. No,
I
Sorry.
can't keep saying this.
it's Motorola grade. Motorola's gonna hate us.
I was going to say, someone's going to come after you.
No, look,
Sorry.
they know how I feel, and they have a chance to prove themselves, because since last week
They
we
announced
didn't
a new
talk about
flagship.
it. They announced the Moto Edge Plus again,
2022.
2022.
They're just
and
adding the year
Okay.
after the name of the phone.
Not exclusive to Verizon.
do you want me
this
to
time.
give Moto some love right now? This is honestly from my heart. You've checked all the boxes of things that were missing on the previous phone that pissed me off, and you fixed them. So on paper, you're doing the right thing. I just hope you can deliver imaging
execute.
performance that is not Moto, okay? Like,
We'll have to wait and see. It looks like they will be able to do something better than what they have. The question is the image processing going to be
Right.
a step up? Because they need that step up.
so let's talk about it. Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It has wireless charging. Oh my God.
Finally.
I can't believe that's
They
a big
have
deal.
wireless charging.
Right? Right?
Nope, they had it on the Edge Plus,
Plus,
Edge Plus.
2 years ago.
2 years
The last
ago. Yeah.
Edge, but the one that we just got at the baseball game, was a piece of junk phone that I wanted to break
Right,
in
that was the
half
regular
right in
Edge.
front
yeah,
of
the
them.
Edge.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This has 144 hertz, but it's not an LCD. It's an AMOLED, like what we wanted, right? So that's good. I don't think it's an LTPO, but it's a high refresh rate AMOLED.
Yeah, it's a high. It is variable, but I think it goes down to 10 or something like. I'll
So,
have to check the specs.
One of my checkboxes was wireless charging. Another one was, why the hell did you put an LCD in there? Give us an AMOLED. They fix that. And now we have OIS on the main camera. Oh, like, so they're listening. They are
And
listening.
also pen integration. It's
Yeah, but it's not in the silo.
it's not in
They
silo,
totally blew it.
but they have a case that comes with, and it's
Right.
it's a thick pen too. But they have a case that allows you to carry the pen along with you.
It never works though.
Yeah,
Like,
see?
having a pen in a case, there's a reason why there's a pen in the new S22 Ultra, because when it was on 21 and it just made the phone like an inch wider.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
and no one wants to carry a pen.
I can't see the screen of the S22 Ultra right now, but if you see it moving, it's because the S22 Ultra is having a chuckle right now. Because it's got its silo for its pen. Look, I like the pen support. I like
pen support too. And Motorola's done that before, kind of like a sneaky pen support.
Well, the G Stylus.
The G Stylus.
The Moto Z4 had pen support, and they didn't even tell anybody.
Oh, that's right. I remember reviewing it, and I tried like a digitizer from the Surface, and it just worked. It was great. But look, I think the thing about this Moto is that the prices got me a little worried. At least the unlocked version, which is not really what we're going to be focusing on in the US, but it's going to be $999 or something like that. Like, I don't know if that's fact, but I think that's kind of a rumor I'm hearing. And at that price, you know, again, S22 Ultra, it's kind of, you're going to get a discount on this phone. But there are rumors, strong rumors. My little finger told me is a Verizon version coming, of course, with millimeter wave, without changes. So no features taken away by the evil carriers that will cost less because it'll be heavily subsidized. So
there are other carrier versions coming too later.
Oh, they are? Yeah. Well, there you go. You heard that from your little finger.
Yeah, maybe 90-day exclusive. They didn't tell me that, but I would assume.
Yeah, so what I've heard is this is going to be their first device that they're truly going to be pushing at US carriers to get back into stores and in front of consumers because Moto's been building up their brand in the US. They've gained a lot of market share within the past year. They're getting a lot more recognition, but they still don't have a flagship tier device every store that you go to.
Yeah.
Verizon's been the only one that you can go in and browse and like, hey, there's a Moto device. But like next to a Galaxy S22, they're hoping that's going to, expand with the other carriers. They haven't announced it, but yeah, there's been rumors that there might be something on T-Mo as well. And maybe something on AT&T.
I'm just excited to see that they're listening and they're fixed the checkboxes that I wanted. There's only one checkbox I didn't check. And I'm not going to be upset at this point. Plastic chassis, in the sense that the frame is not an aluminum machine frame. It's some sort of Kevlar like they've been using, which is going to be very robust and glass back still. So, okay, so good, very good. Like I'm looking forward to this phone, especially if they can get the camera beyond the baseline Moto G. Is that what our baseline is? Any Moto G?
Sure.
Which one?
They're kind of getting worse. The new 50 megapixel that they're putting, the super cheap OmniVision or whatever, they're putting in their new Moto G phones, the 4G phones, it's being really horrific. Like worse than the 12 or 13 megapixel. Because it's brand new, they haven't tuned it. So it's like double the badness, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Moto baseline plus bad tuning on a new sensor. Anyway.
Will you allow me to switch the topic up to another thing that I really liked at the show?
For sure.
Yeah. He's the only one that got to say what he liked.
Yeah, you haven't said what you like, but the Huawei Super device. Were you able to check that out?
I just don't get it. Like, it's boring as F to me. Like,
as somebody who is at their computer all day long, and I have phones.
But you don't have any Huawei stuff.
No, but hear me out.
Exactly.
Android users have always been jealous of iPhone users and the integration that you get when you're on the Apple platform. Being able to use an iPad to extend your screen from a Mac in order to do things, to be able to drag and drop files between devices, things like that. Somehow, Huawei was, kicked out of Google's version of Android and came back to the table saying, screw you. We created this unique ecosystem where I can drag and drop connectivity between devices. I can pair a speaker by dragging and dropping on my screen. I can unpair a mouse by dragging and dropping on the screen. I can pair a mouse from my laptop to a tablet by dragging and dropping. And it's just this seamless, cohesive user experience that Google's not given us. They own Chrome, they own Android, we don't have it. Microsoft's given us some integration with Android devices. This takes things to this next level. And I was at the Huawei booth, I was expecting it to be janky as hell. It is smooth and Microsoft should be taking note. Because it's with Windows, with Android.
And Samsung and Moto, which has, they all have pieces of that, right?
Exactly.
Dex, and then what's the Moto thing called?
Ready for.
And then there is, as you said, there's a Windows. What is the Windows one? Microsoft.
Your
is
phone?
one thing.
Your phone.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Oh,
And then-
your phone is
yeah,
like
but-
the least competent of them all.
So
Yeah,
they
exactly.
created-
Exactly.
also
That's
linked to Windows is
Microsoft.
the
If
same
Microsoft puts out that piece of crap and then Huawei comes out with this, that's super smooth. I'm like, what the hell is Microsoft doing?
Or Google,
Huawei's
for that
Google.
matter,
What's
right?
actually funny is Intel bought a company that does a similar kind of
Yes.
integration. I forget the name of the company,
I
but
don't remember either.
Dell uses it in their Alienware and their Dell PCs to connect your smartphone and mirror your smartphone
Mobile
display.
Connect?
Yeah, the mobile
Yeah.
connect. So they
And that works with
Intel,
iPhones.
So Intel bought that. So I think you're
Okay.
going to start seeing that on PCs across all OEMs, and
Yeah.
maybe Microsoft will get involved. So we'll get even deeper integration.
I'm
but-
surprised there's not some software maker because the software and the integration can be done. Why isn't there some software maker, maybe Adobe, saying, make it part of Creative Cloud and create this, and it works with all phones, not just a Moto device that can connect to a Lenovo laptop
Yeah.
or a Dell thing that connects to a
I think-
specific device
I
or
think
a
they call it
Huawei.
Creative Cloud.
No, but like some company has to be out there that sees this as a market and be like, you can sell this. I'd pay $100
there's-
for
I
it,
think there's
right?
more
Or if
incentive
it
to
was
do
a
it when you sell
$2
hardware.
monthly subscription.
I'm glad you explained how cool it was to experience because during the briefing with Huawei, I was literally falling asleep during that part.
Really?
I was like, this is the most boring thing you possibly ever show me.
What they're
It's-
doing is
you gotta see it. You gotta see it.
You have
It
to
doesn't
see it.
mean it's
So-
unnecessary.
So they have
It's
their
just,
they have their tablet right next to it, and they have the PC in the middle and the smartphone on the side. And even with the smartphone, so some of these software things allow you to mirror the smartphone screen. This allows you to have 3 apps from the smartphone side by side on the PC. So you can multitask 3 apps from the smartphone on your PC.
So why do you need a PC again?
I don't know.
Why don't you just plug a monitor into your phone and then have
but
3 apps on the
You
monitor?
don't understand from Huawei's perspective. It's a super device.
It's a super
It's
device.
one device, but it's just whatever interface you're using at the time. So it could be a PC, it could be a phone, it could be a tablet. That's their perspective. And what they're doing is they're focusing on what they can control because there's so much that they can't right now. Like there's no Google services anymore. They just announced a bunch of PCs with last gen processors, an all-in-one without
Yeah.
dedicated graphics.
I mean,
So-
super device, it sounds like, it's not going to satisfy the U.S. government very much.
No, not at all. And just to be clear, the best place for you to buy these is China,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Boom.
Wait, did they also announce a printer?
they also have a printer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
had to see
They
that.
also have a
Do they have an
printer.
air purifier that connects to this?
Oh,
And drag and
Huawei's
drop
had air
down?
purifiers for a long time,
Yeah, that's
so
not
I
new.
don't think it's part of the super device yet.
Superbot reunite.
Because with the super, they have an interface. They announced a new Bluetooth speaker, and you can connect and disconnect the Bluetooth speakers with the super device interface.
That's why there was a bunch of Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah,
I saw.
so-
I was like, why are they promoting Bluetooth speakers so
And
much?
so with the Bluetooth speakers, you can connect multiple Bluetooth speakers to one device, and so you can create surround sound. You're like, I have 2 Bluetooth speakers. Let's put them on both
Sonos
sides.
would like to have a patent discussion with you now.
Well,
Probably.
Speaking of the all-in-one, I thought it was really sleek and clean. Like I like the design. I just didn't realize it doesn't have discrete graphics.
Yeah.
No
We're gonna
discrete
use it.
graphics.
But they make
It's like an
they make a
ultrabook
monitor.
inside a display.
They make a 3x2 28-inch monitor called the MateView. It's incredible.
You got one, right?
Yeah, I have one. So it's like the Mate Station X is like the monitor, but with a Ryzen 7 H series processor inside. So I'd rather just use my own computer with that monitor.
Yeah.
Speaking of Huawei, it's a bad segue probably, but let's talk about Honor.
Oh man.
Because,
Can I bring up one more thing about Huawei though? No. Because one thing I thought was really interesting, they're bringing the Huawei App Gallery to Windows.
Yes. That was one of their other announcements.
They wouldn't tell me how.
Why
They
do
wouldn't
they
even admit to
plan-
using the Windows subsystem for Android.
what are they trying to achieve?
The
More people using the
ecosystem.
app
Yeah.
ecosystem. Yeah. I
Yeah.
guess.
Interesting. So
Are
APKs from
they
the-
allowed to use the Windows Store in China, though?
Yes, they are, because
They are.
nobody
They
cares
are.
about IP in China.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Until
I wasn't
somebody
aware.
sues them.
Microsoft is okay in
I don't know.
China.
I'm just being snarky. Look, I think the bottom line to me here is that I love that Huawei is trying to, do some cool stuff. Like, they're in a really difficult position.
They are,
I feel
yeah.
really bad for them. They're doing some really nice stuff. I've got a P50 Pro finally that came in. I need to unbox it because it was just before MWC. All the phones, like literally 30 phones arrived last week and I didn't know what to do with them. So I picked a few of them, unboxed them, and took them to Barcelona. But I literally have like the GT2 Pro that you have in your hand there from Realme waiting on my desk.
Yeah.
I have a P50 Pro waiting on my desk.
You're going to like it.
I have speaking of Moto baseline photography, I have a Moto G Stylus 4G sitting on my desk. I have a bunch of other stuff. So the reality is I'm really looking forward to see what the imaging does on the P50 Pro because I believe I'm still going to be blown away.
I was pretty impressed with the P50 Pocket.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't had a chance to play with it.
You went to the booth?
Yeah, I went to the booth. It's like really the design is very premium. They have like, etching on the outside, on the fingerprint friendly outside. And it really feels very like a competitive product against the Flip. And it has more cameras on the outside, but without Google mobile service, it's kind of
it's limited. It's a China only device.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about Honor because there's this Huawei connection. How to put it? I have been joking for months that I don't know, like that in the back of my mind, I'm constantly reminded that Honor came out of Huawei and that the connection isn't broken. Like that's my concern. And I joke about it because I really want to be fair and believe that they are two separate companies. But every time I see a device or a presentation or the technology they're using, like the super fast charging that we're going to talk about, or the camera fusions technology we're going to talk about for this Honor phone, I'm like, this is Huawei stuff. And I know you inherited a lot of it, but it's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
To me, like when I look at the industrial design of this gorgeous Honor Magic 4 Pro, other than the camera bump, which is very unique, although it does remind me of the Porsche design Mate 40 Pro.
The Porsche design, yeah.
I want to say, like, you look at the aluminum chassis, the rails, the way the display waterfalls around, and you're like, this is a P40 Pro design. And I feel it's weird that after 2 years, they haven't been able to, like, crank their own stuff there.
Well, so here's the thing, though. Like, yes, there's a lot of hereditary things coming along through the process, but also you have to remember the designers and the engineers that are building these phones were building these phones to look this way when they were still under the Huawei. So it's not like the engineers woke up one day and said, scrap all the designs we've ever done and let's start fresh, which I think a lot of us would appreciate. But they're like, we've honed these designs for years. We're just going to continue to iterate on the same design language. And eventually you'll see a separation. But like if you had a twin that was doing the same thing as you, the more time you spend apart, the less similar you get, right? But it takes years to make that transition. And, we all know it takes 18 months to develop a phone from concept to when it actually hits the market. So we're finally seeing the first step away from Huawei.
For sure.
But it's not a huge step away, but it's slightly. I was looking at the phone, I was like, the DNA, there's still correlation there, but it's less than the last couple phones that we've seen from Honor that are replicas.
I want to remind everyone, like I know that Honor's not going to be happy for me to remind you, but the Honor 50 and the Nova 9 are the exact same phone. Like they are the exact same phone. They're running the exact same software, and one has GMS and has a different name. Like down to the animations in the software. It is uncanny. And that was this summer. So last summer. So I'm like, that's a year and a half into the separation of the companies. Feels weird to me. I'm like, why not? You could have reskinned the software, changed the animations.
But we know how, anytime a reskin happens, we know how janky the first generation of reskinning is. Do they want to worry about reskinning something?
What about the chassis be identical, the hardware being identical?
But that's, again, that goes to this phone was in development for 18 months. Right? Like, I think those ones we saw last summer and last fall were the last of, these were already in development before they announced the separation.
Right.
This one here feels slightly different, and the next one will be slightly more different.
So speaking of it, it's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It's got a ton of RAM and storage. It has an incredible camera system. 50 megapixel main with OIS, 50 megapixel ultra wide. It's got a 64 megapixel telephoto folded lens periscope. Is that a 5?
3.5.
I've heard different things here.
3.5
3.5 is what I said in my video, actually.
It is 3.5, and I was expecting, if you're doing a folded lens, you should be doing at least 4.
It's a,
4 or
5.
Yeah.
It's a Z-depth thing. Like the Pixel 6 Pro has a 4x and it's a 48 megapixel, and they had to do a folded lens because you got to put the axis somewhere. So I'm not surprised, but that camera should be bonkers good because it's got the crazy prism OIS thing where it's like OIS on the sensor end of the lens and on the prism end of the lens. It does both. It seems to be grim.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I was able to use the device for a couple hours, and I captured photos and videos from it. So I'm going to be doing a camera test video. So if you want to see the photos, go to Phandroid, and you'll be able to see the...
There you go. Thanks.
And so far, like taking the photos, the selfie camera was the only thing that seemed a little bit disappointing.
And it's 2, right? It's got an ultra wide and a regular?
No, it has a 3D 3D sensor, 3D and a regular, yeah. The dynamic range just didn't seem up to par, but it is still pre-production software. The phones, they haven't announced the launch date yet, so they have still time to work things out. But as far as rear cameras go, it looked, so far on the photos that I've looked at, it looked really good.
There's another lens, and it's, I think, a depth sensor of some kind, like an 8 megapixel.
Yeah, I think it was.
A time of flight sensor.
Time of flight, okay.
Time of flight, 3D time of flight sensor.
So, I mean, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting camera system. We're going to get devices. We've been promised as soon as there's a global version, we'll get our hands on one. 5G, of course, and then here's the kicker: 100-watt wired and wireless charger. Wow. Like, how do you do that? That's 100-watt wired, fine, but wireless.
I actually took a picture of the wireless charger because I just wanted to see how thick it was. Because it's probably
got to be a fan.
It's got to have active cooling, and it's probably got some tons of capacitors in it, just so that it can
stay
discharge
alive.
that fast.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm assuming maybe with 100-watt wireless charging, there's dual coils on the inside.
It's got to
Probably.
be.
Yeah, there has to be.
One for each battery, actually.
Yeah. So there has to be dual coils on the inside so that they can absorb that wireless power that quickly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, anyway, this phone is amazing, and the price is wow. Okay, not Oppo Find X5 Pro, wow, because that's 1,300 euros. This is 1,100 euros. That's a lot of money for Honor. I mean, we're used to Honor being kind of like Realme back in the day. You younger, millennial, whatever, Gen Zer type phones.
The scrappy startup, little sibling.
What? Yeah, but it's not that now. They're really, because, with Huawei being dropped out of the equation, really being able to scale up phones, even in China, Honor is seeing that as an opportunity, and they're jumping in. And I do hope that they continue making I told Haya this. I hope they can make more mid-rangers still, because they made some really great phones with great features at a really good price before.
I was also going to say, during the presentation, they made it very clear that they're growing extremely fast.
Right.
Yes.
And I have a feeling that part of the reason why things haven't felt so different from Huawei is probably because they've also hired a lot of Huawei's engineers.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Which would make a very rational.
But the presentation was very Huawei. That was the.
It
was extremely technical and really boring in a way.
It felt very early Huawei days.
Really long, and my feedback is lighten up.
And the phrases they used and the flowery language
and the presentation,
the
delivery, right, of it.
Yeah, I mean the Huawei presentations, they never want to compete with Android. They're competing with Apple. Right. So all their comparisons are versus Apple, iPhone 13. Yeah, they're doing side-by-side photos. They're like, well, look at what we can do versus what Apple can do.
I know.
And that's the same exact playbook Huawei was doing the last 4 or 5 years. Honor never used to do that.
Never.
They were like, we take great photos, and here's some pictures of some kids on a skateboard, and they're doing fun things with a camera. Go have fun with it. And they didn't do any of that. And as you said, that's what Realme is doing now. Yeah. Right? They're doing that grassroots, give some phones to some kids and make some content type thing.
Realme's got a very punk rock vibe to me right now.
And Honor had that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think these phones by the way, there's an Honor Magic 4 Non-Pro as well, which is, I think, 900 euros, whatever it is. It's a lot of money. It still has most of the technology. I think the wireless charging and is down to
50 watts.
50 watts, and then the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 still, the telephoto is drawn down to an 8 megapixel, but it still has the 2 main 50 megapixels. So you're not going to drop down too much, going down 200 euros. But the bottom line is, this is the first phone from Honor where I'm like, yeah, this is like a we're doing everything in the kitchen sink, kind of like flagship, no compromises. So this is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
You know. Anything else we liked from the show? I mean, I tell you what I liked. When we would go through like things you like and didn't like, I liked of course, the Find X5 Pro was before MWC technically, and I knew it was coming because I'd been briefed. I love that phone. I'm really liking where they're going with their phones. I want them to do something though that can compete with Samsung, because I feel like they were not going to be taken seriously if they don't do the spec sheet of Samsung. You know, I talked to them about that, and they're like, "Oh, we're not sure about that." I'm like, "I think you should be sure about that. I think this is not on the table. This is a critical thing."
I have a
Xiaomi did it with the Mi 11 Ultra. They
absolutely,
went there,
and
right?
they went further, right?
And they went further.
Yep. I think, you know, I've had my S21 Ultra for a year, and it's going to be replaced by the 22, but I just have a very hard time now convincing myself that I can no longer have that telephoto because I use it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't really a phone that compares, and I wish there was.
I agree. It's a game changer if you're doing a lot of photography and you need the versatility. Like I use most of my I'm just switched to S22 Ultra, but I was using S21 Ultra, and I'm doing all my car photography with it for Tech Radar, and then I use my Pixel for all my product photography for the phone stuff, and I use an iPhone for video. Like, this is actually recording video right now, which is kind of funny. This is because my iPhone runs out of storage all the time. And so I was like, this is like, 12 gigs, 512 or whichever version they sent me. I can like record video for the next day on this thing and it won't run out of space. It'll run out of battery first. But, you know, I think to me, like, Oppo being the flagship brand, and I kind of feel like we should talk about Vivo a little bit, because Vivo has their own ISP silicon that they implemented with the X70 Pro Plus recently. Mm-hmm. And they have the gimbal, which is kind of like in-body stabilization because the sensor moves with the lens, but it's not linear. It's, you know, it's gimbal. And their latest flagship has both insane wireless charging speeds and insane wired charging speeds. Vivo never had wireless charging. Like, they just didn't care about it.
Yeah.
And they've got it now. So I feel like even though they're detached in the BBK kind of, you know,
they're the most separated
Cloud Star,
brand.
you know, Star Cloud or whatever you want to call it. It's like, to me, they are the closest to compete because they have multiple telephotos. They actually have 2 telephotos on their flagship.
Yeah.
Now, they're not 3 and 10x, they're 2x and 5x, but they're there. And the 2x is nice because it's a portrait lens. They specifically say we use it for portraits.
Yeah, it has the shallower depth of field.
It has the optics for portrait, so it's like a 50 millimeter type deal. It's really good. I love taking portraits with the Vivo cameras on the flagship. It's just a great experience. So I think Vivo needs to be talked about, and the fact that EQ, whatever their sub brand, IQ, whatever.
IQOO. Yeah,
correct.
IQ.
Launched a almost identical flagship to the X70 Pro Plus, but at 900 euros recently, like last week, called the EQ9 Pro or something.
The one with the gigantic fingerprint sensor.
And it has
like half the
it's the
screen.
first EQ ever with wireless charging. So
they got wireless charging and under screen.
Oppo needs to be able to even compete with their own like neighbor or whatever you want to call it.
But do they need to compete, or just let their sister brand take that market segment? I mean, you can't compete in every segment.
The problem is that
right?
Vivo is not as popular in some markets, right? Like Europe doesn't have Vivo yet, really. It does. But
No, they do. They have a good presence in Europe.
Oppo is
Oppo is much bigger.
You know what I'm saying?
But Vivo has probably 5 to 10% of market share in Europe.
That is my argument in favor of Oppo having a Find X5 Pro Plus. Added folded lens to that.
I think one other thing we need to talk about, the Nubia Z40 Pro launched with MagSafe integration.
Is it compatible to Apple MagSafe?
I missed that.
Yeah. So it has. So it's Android's answer to MagSafe. It's slightly
Realme
different.
did it first. They had a magnetic wireless charger too, didn't they?
Yeah. So, but this is going to be. It will be compatible with MagSafe devices. And so if you want an Android phone, so over the last year and a half, we've seen so many Android devices that are like haphazardly, a MagSafe thing might connect to it, and it kind of dangles there, but then it falls off. This is the real deal, and it's Nubia, so it's not going to be available in the US markets. Some in the European market, but not all markets within Europe. go to China, buy yourself a Nubia, and you'll have a MagSafe compatible Android device.
Yeah. To me, so beyond the Oppo Find X5 Pro, the Realme GT2 Pro is another one that excites me this show. The Honor Magic 4 Pro, of course. And yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the Chinese just stole the show. Like, they just ate everyone alive. From a consumer perspective, I'm sure there's tons of stuff happening in enterprise here and back end, all the networking.
Well, and you
About
did
Samsung though.
There was nothing to talk about for Samsung, don't worry. I mean,
Fighting words.
Yeah, it really
I
is.
mean, do you think that what they brought to the table is going to change anything? Because Samsung has,
Those are phenomenal laptops.
Those laptops
but they
are
have like
amazing.
zero market share anywhere in the world. So does
But
it
they're
really
targeting
matter?
enterprise, which I think is a big deal.
It is, but as I mentioned before with the Lenovo stuff, enterprise is so hard to get in because they buy years in
They
advance.
only buy Lenovo.
They only buy Lenovo.
Or Dell.
Right,
God
Dell
forbid.
Latitude,
Barely.
HP Elite.
But like
HP?
for them to let in a new brand that they've never used before, like the chances of that happening, like somebody that's saying I'm going to buy 100,000 laptops is not going to say I'm going to buy a Samsung.
Yeah, but there's still a starting point.
I want to give HP PR a shout out for trying to pitch me stuff all month long before MWC that is completely unrelated to what I cover.
What did they
Enterprise
Enterprise
Solutions.
solutions.
I got the pitch as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
They were like, come to our booth for some HP Enterprise Solutions with 5G. I'm like, not interested.
Thank you, HP. But
I think that's HPE.
yeah,
Yes.
probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Because HPE is a different
Right.
company
Yeah.
than HP is now.
Yeah.
So I don't think we really have time to get into Samsungs, but the bottom line is, what are they called? Galaxy Book 2?
Galaxy Book
Book
2
2.
series, not to be confused with the previous Galaxy Book 2, which had a Snapdragon 850. That was, yeah.
Those are Intel?
They're not helping
Yes, the
themselves.
new ones are
Yeah,
Intel.
these are Intel. But I mean, you
Same
have
name, different chipset. It's okay.
So yeah, you have the Galaxy Book 2 Pro and Pro 360. Then there's a regular Galaxy Book 2 that I think is about $200 cheaper. Then there's the business, which they're going to detail more.
But
later.
it does have the AMOLED display, right?
Yes. No,
And-
the business is not.
No, the business does,
Yeah.
but the regular one does. And it looks amazing.
It does.
I will give them
And
that.
it's
It looks
full
amazing.
HD, right? So it's not draining the battery as much. I mean, it would be nice to have a UHD option, at least in the 15-inch models. But full HD on 13-inch is pretty good, and it's not sucking down battery like most OLED laptops do. It's got 12th gen processors, 28-watt 12th gen processors in the Pro, under 2 pounds on the 13-inch Pro. That's like 1.92 pounds.
So is this the first time Samsung's really getting aggressive about competing with the big boys?
No,
They've been trying.
They've been trying for 5 years.
This is
but
pretty similar
they
to
just
the
don't
last
sell.
gen
But then-
Pro. The full HD webcam and 12th gen processor.
But do you think they're going to get somewhere this time? Since they've been doing it for 5 years?
I don't.
Their strategy
But
has been
so like,
I mean, I
as
think-
far as a laptop goes, it's very appealing.
Yeah.
I don't think the price is higher than what a lot of the competitors are doing within that segment because it is a premium tier
Is
device.
it more appealing than a Mac with an M chip in it?
No,
Because right now,
completely
nothing
not.
is more appealing.
Completely not.
Okay.
And as you were
Mike.
saying,
Well, it has Windows, so obviously it's more appealing.
oh,
Yeah.
you can install Google's new Chrome OS conversion for your Windows laptop
Yeah.
and just make it a Chrome OS device. I don't know. No, it's a very appealing device from as far as hardware goes. I just don't think the market will find it appealing.
All right. Let's each. I picked mine. Let's each pick one winner. I picked Oppo. You
Dang.
can be
You
the
already
same
picked
thing.
the Lenovo.
Well, I like the Lenovo, but that was what I was leading with.
Yeah.
I actually really liked what Oppo has done with the Air Glass, their AR headset, in the sense that they are actually being very conservative with what they're trying to do with AR and where they're starting. A lot of companies are trying to bite off more than they can chew. And Oppo is being very conservative with their approach and trying to understand the most basic experience and opportunities and build on that instead of trying to build like a HoloLens first and then figure out how to use it. So I think we're going to see more smartphone vendors coming with AR headsets. And I think Oppo's, among the first. But yeah, it was really interesting to actually finally see it in person because it did the whole launch like virtually, and you got to put your face in an AR headset. You can't just look at photos.
Right. Nick.
I'm going to do a little shout out to TCL with their foldable display concepts.
Yeah, that was
Like,
cool.
Yeah.
They're still not ready to release a foldable, but they were showing off some new foldable / rollable at the same time. Fold 360 all the way around, fold it inward and outward, just showing off what they can actually achieve with the technology that they have, and the different hinge designs and the different motors and mechanisms on the inside. TCL does sell their foldable displays to other OEMs, so I'd imagine we're going to see other OEMs implementing some of these designs before TCL gets to it, which is good for the market and gives Samsung some competition on that end.
Rich?
Well, I would have said ThinkPad X13s early on if it wasn't said already, but you know me and the ARM laptops, it gets me hyped. But I'll go with Samsung because those laptops are awesome. They're fantastic laptops.
Are you getting one?
Yeah, eventually.
Are you going to steal it and keep it?
Just go to the booth.
I'll just
booth tomorrow
from over there. It's fine. They're not,
nobody's
locked
watching
down over
nowhere.
there or anything. Have you been to the Samsung booth?
No.
You have to
it's
scan
weird.
your
You have to
badge.
go
You have to go
inside.
inside. Yeah. So getting it out of there should be fine.
They know who you are.
But also the business model is really interesting because just business PCs in general tend to be really interesting. A lot of time they just have features that I wish was on more consumer laptops, like cellular connectivity, which it'll have. And then, of course, they didn't tell us everything about it, which makes me more interested. It's a shame that it's not AMOLED, but I understand why they did. They prioritized a matte anti-glare display instead. It's 16 by 10.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense for the market that they're pushing. But also the Galaxy Book 2 Pro in general, 1.92 pounds is just wild.
It's incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
What do they mean? Magnesium? What are they doing for chassis?
Yeah, it's like a magnesium alloy.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's about the lightest, strongest thing you can get, other than maybe titanium, but that's not easy to work with.
Cheap.
Or cheap.
Yeah.
Well, there's that too, but whatever. All right, we should wrap it up, folks. Anshel, you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Anshel Sag.
Nick?
I am on Twitter at Nick M. Gray, or you can find my work on Phandroid.com or YouTube.com/Phandroid.
Rich?
Twitter at The Rich Woods and XDADevelopers.com.
Any Instagram handles you guys want to throw out?
Mine's the
It's
same.
the same.
That's
Same, at Nick M. Gray.
that's where the kids are these days. I'm making reels now. What
I'm
the hell?
making TikToks too.
Oh,
Yeah.
The
I
talks, huh?
I gotta
TikToks
follow
and
you.
Instagram. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so folks, you know where to find me on the internet. My Tank Girl, that's TNKGRL, like the comic book character Tank Girl. Just drop the vowels. It's on Twitter and Instagram. So if you want to chat with all of us, do it on Twitter. Comment, tell us what you thought of the show or questions you have about the device, since we all have them. And then, Instagram is also the same, but it's pictures of phones, pictures taken with phones, pictures of cars, all that kind of good stuff. There is 2 YouTube channels you should subscribe to, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast and youtube.com/mobiletechmore. One is mostly phones and audio gear and unboxings. The other one is all the rest of the stuff. So like travel tech, car tech, home automation tech, peripheral to mobile, but cool stuff. Please subscribe, like, click the little notification bell, all that good stuff. Comment in the videos. You want to comment about the podcast and the videos, I welcome that. That's totally cool. The bottom line is, you know how YouTube works. I don't have to tell you how YouTube works. Now, the last thing is obviously that the podcast lives on mobiletechpodcast.com and on all the major apps out there for podcasting. So Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify. Please subscribe and tell your friends. And if your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. It really helps. It's great. And of course, I wouldn't be complete without Patreon. I mentioned it earlier. If you want to really help this podcast out and contribute financially, Patreon is the way to go. Patreon.com/Tankgirl or Patreon.com/TNKGRL. We've got a bunch of different tiers. One gives you access to a Discord server. One gives you access to the video version ahead of time. Less edits, a little more raw, and you get to see the devices and us talk and interact. It's a lot of fun. So consider helping me with Patreon. And I want to thank all my existing patrons. Nobody joined this week, so maybe you'll be the one to join this time around. So yeah. And then, of course, I also want to thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible's been with us since the early days, and they're great. They're the number one, like the de facto audiobook platform. If you love books, like as much as I do, but you don't want to read them, you are tired, you're in front of your computer all day, or you're on a road trip, you're driving, you need to keep your eyes on the road. You want a book read to you. And this is what Audible does. These are great. They have an incredible selection of books, a lot of books read by the authors. There's some short stories, some podcasts. It's a whole universe out there waiting for you. You get a 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end. whether you stay or not, consider helping me out. audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. Click through there, sign up, and enjoy all the books, and enjoy having some beautiful voice read to you while your eyes are closed in your business class seat flying back from Barcelona. Oh, it's wonderful. So check out Audible. I want to thank them for being our longtime sponsor. And I want to thank you all for paying attention and listening. We'll be back next week with another show. Thanks, folks, all of you, for being my guests. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a
And
pleasure.
goodbye from Barcelona, MWC. We'll catch you next time. Cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.